Long John Silver, the character, originated from the classic book Treasure Island. But what matters more right now is that it represents America's biggest fast-service seafood chain. Honestly, I struggle to think of comparable competitors. They once dominated roughly 2/3 of their sector, though that figure has shrunk to approximately 1/3. This decline stems partly from rivals like McDonald's and Popeyes expanding their seafood offerings. Their store count has varied between 1,000 and 1,500 over recent decades, currently sitting closer to the minimum. For those unfamiliar with the brand, it's quite distinctive. The maritime aesthetic has always caught my attention, walls adorned with ocean imagery and marine life, sometimes featuring those large wooden ship wheels. There's typically a bell near the entrance that satisfied customers ring before departing. Despite their unique positioning, Long John Silver's has faced challenging times. Market position has weakened, outlets have shuttered, revenue has fluctuated, and public opinion could improve. I'm somewhat surprised they're still operating. Curiously, their homepage features a message stating, "Yes, we still exist," hardly encouraging. Their struggles extend back 20-30+ years, including a 1998 bankruptcy filing. Yet they persist, which makes their growth story and recent history worth exploring. The story begins in 1929 when Jerry Lederer launched a modest burger stand named White Tavern Shop in Shelbyville, Kentucky, a town of roughly 4,000 residents. Timing wasn't ideal, given the Great Depression transitioning into World War II, but the venture survived. The straightforward model actually suited Depression economics. It expanded into a chain reaching 13 locations, but wartime shortages of food and workers forced most closures. Post-war prospects seemed dim, though Jerry identified new possibilities. To capitalize, he implemented changes. He rebranded his enterprise as Jericho, derived from his first name, and established a fresh restaurant concept under this parent company, not Long John Silver's yet, but Jerry's Five and Dime. This venture was somewhat groundbreaking, focusing on roast beef sandwiches. While I associate roast beef sandwiches with Arby's, Jerry was selling them 17 years before Arby's launched. However, Jerry encountered difficulties again. He attributed it to the 15-cent sandwich price being excessive. I'm doubtful Arby's later charged 69 cents, and even adjusting for inflation, 15 cents seems reasonable. Perhaps size or quality was the issue. Regardless, after approximately 1 year, poor sales prompted Jerry to abandon roast beef for a traditional menu centered on burgers. In my view, burgers represent the safe, uninspired option. You'll likely achieve moderate success since it's universally accepted, but everyone offers them, making it harder to become exceptional. The transition proved adequately successful over the following 15 years. He added 6 more locations. Quick favor before we dive deeper. If you're enjoying this deep dive in a company's documentary, smash that like button and subscribe. Leadership change and the birth of Long John Silver's. In 1963, Jerry suffered a fatal heart attack, and Warren Rosenthal assumed control. He'd been with the organization almost from inception, beginning as a location manager and advancing to CEO. Upon Jerry's death, he became Jericho's president and owner. Similar to Jerry's earlier roast beef experiment, Warren Rosenthal recognized an opportunity in 1969 for a novel fast food concept specializing in seafood, exactly what you're anticipating. They launched it in 1969 in Lexington, Kentucky, naming it Long John Silver's. Everything previously discussed ranged from unsuccessful to moderately successful, but this was their genuine breakthrough. Finally, circumstances aligned for Jericho. Fast food establishments were expanding rapidly everywhere, and they had a differentiated version. The innovative concept captured public interest, and critically, they possessed the necessary resources and expertise to meet demand. They had restaurant industry experience, particularly in franchising, plus available capital from their recent public offering. Within years, hundreds of Long John Silver's existed, and by their first decades, and in 1979, over 1,000 operated. Growth continued throughout the 1980s, easily establishing them as America's largest fast food seafood chain, without any significant changes I consider transformative. The turning point in 1989. That changed in 1989. They were approaching 1,500 locations, nearly a nationwide brand. However, concerns emerged about their future. Increased competition meant fish became more accessible to consumers through similar restaurants or frozen supermarket products. Simultaneously, acquisition costs for their fish varieties were rising, reducing profit margins. Additionally, the broader economy was declining. These combined factors caused their stock value to drop, triggering events leading to the company's sale. I'd identify this as their decline's starting point. My primary reason: their 1989 leverage buyout. A group of company executives partnered with investment firms to take the company private for the first time in 20 years through a $620 million leverage buyout, meaning most funds came from debt loaded onto the company itself. These new owners installed new leadership that immediately implemented business changes. I wouldn't call them particularly damaging either. The most significant was probably emphasizing Long John Silver's restaurants more heavily. Previously, owners were hesitant to concentrate everything in one area. While 75 to 80% focused on Long John Silver's, they maintained several other restaurant chains they'd launched over time. Now they committed entirely to Long John Silver's, selling or shuttering everything else. Perhaps I overextended that metaphor. By 1991, Long John Silver's comprised 100% of their operations, and they even renamed the company from Jericho to Long John Silver's Restaurants. As a private entity, exact figures are unavailable, but they seemingly performed well throughout the 1990s, reportedly achieving record sales and opening additional franchises. The debt crisis. But that debt made everything exponentially harder. Here's my assessment. The buyout added enormous debt instantly, which was overwhelming. They did divest roughly a quarter of the business those other concepts. Proceeds helped maintain operations and reduce some debt. But it soon became apparent this wasn't sustainable. They were working hard but couldn't prevent drowning in debt. See, I'm using an aquatic metaphor this time because, well, you understand. In 1998, they filed for bankruptcy, reporting $457 million in liabilities against only $329 million in assets, creating negative equity, never favorable. The company head suggested sales and profits were both increasing, but debt proved insurmountable. Changes in ownership. The following year, the company owning A&W acquired them. Not much transpired, but it united both brands. 3 years later, in 2002, A&W and Long John Silver's were purchased together in a $320 million deal by what became Yum Brands. That's my next reason they never thrived, particularly under that ownership. I'm uncertain if they truly understood what to do with it or were willing to invest effort. They attempted co-locating restaurants, most frequently pairing it with A&W. This didn't seem effective. One of Long John Silver's coolest aspects is that maritime theme, but splitting locations with A&W diminished that atmosphere. There were additional problems too, but overall, combined locations weren't considered the most profitable. The Long John Silver's location count declined annually under this company. Over 1,200 when acquired, down to under 1,000 when sold, marking their first time below 1,000 locations since the 1970s. In 2011, they were sold to franchisee leaders and other investors. Something similar occurred with A&W simultaneously because Yum Brands wanted to concentrate on their larger, more successful brands. The health factor. My final reason explaining their difficulties: their food's nutritional value. I recognize most fast food chains could improve here, but Long John Silver's might rank among the worst. Most sales over the years came from deep-fried chicken or fish, and hush puppies, essentially deep-fried cornmeal balls. They've consistently struggled, shifting toward healthier options. They introduced grilled and baked items in the early 1990s, which were well received. But in 2013, the Center for Science and the Public Interest declared their Big Catch meal America's worst meal. Here are some statistics. One meal contained over 1,300 calories, 3,700 milligrams of sodium, 19 grams of saturated fat, and the real concern, 33 grams of trans fat, reportedly exceeding the American Heart Association's daily maximum by over 16 times. This negative designation received extensive press coverage, harming public perception. They implemented damage control, announcing trans fat elimination from their entire menu months later. As always, this isn't an exhaustive list of decline reasons, but these seem most impactful to me. New turnaround initiatives are underway, including redesigned uniforms, drive-thrus, and restaurants themselves. New menu items include healthier alternatives. Grilled salmon or green bean sides are now available. There's a new logo. I prefer their original fish design, but the new one aligns better with their refreshed, more serious brand identity. These efforts appear designed to make them seem fresher and contemporary, while distancing from past troubles. Let me know your thoughts on Long John Silver's in the comments. I suspect many don't regard them highly. So what do you think of these turnaround initiatives? Are they addressing the core issues? At this stage, I can only characterize this as decades of difficulty, suggesting significant changes are necessary. Do you agree with my reasons for their decline? Or are there other major factors I overlooked? Deteriorating buildings, litigation, or maybe you simply dislike that bell constantly ringing? I'd appreciate hearing your perspective. Thank you for watching.